KaDeja, and I am the Policy Director for Black Leaders Movement here in Lincoln. And it is our mission to promote Black leadership through the development of economic, educational improvement for our community.
My name is Kiara, and I'm the founder and lead organizer of Change Now LNK. Our mission is to promote racial justice, equity, equality, and all of those things by taking a very public policy and solution-focused approach.
I think that it's important because we're not taught a lot about Black history in schools, and this kind of opens the door to that. And I think it also opens the door to a conversation where we talk about the truth in his legacy. And I think as Black leaders, we finally have the opportunity to control the narrative. And I think today is a good day for us to be able to start decolonizing and unwhitewashing his legacy. And I think that this day really, really lets us step foot in that door.
MLK Day is a day to shine light on Black leaders. I think it's also a day to just honor Black history and Black culture as opposed to only doing that in February. I think we can do that all year long, and MLK Day is another day that we can do those kind of things.
For our organization, it holds a special place in our heart because it's a reminder that MLK's foundation was built on local and grassroots organizations. He wouldn't be able to have the legacy that he has had it not been for grassroots organizations that were led by Black women. And I think that that's an important part of his legacy as well. And so for us, it gives us a little bit of a boost and a reminder that what we're doing is not in vain, and our work can definitely, it will be uplifted through different, leaders over different times. And I think that this day just really gives us the opportunity to do that.
For me also, it just goes to honoring our Black leaders like I've kind of been saying. And I see MLK Day not only as a day to honor MLK himself, but all of our predecessors that came before us. So even Malcolm X, Angela Davis, and people like that, I see it as a day to just really honor our predecessors and the leaders that came before us, as we're the ones who are pretty much continuing their work.
Agreed. First and foremost, that, he was starkly anti-capitalist. Which is something I myself and our organization believe in. He was arrested the same way we've been arrested and brutalized by the police. We see that the response by white moderates is still the same, to care about order as opposed to justice. And we see the parallels of being around when riots are happening and having our own opinions on that and what goes on and surrounding that. And so I think that I don't even know that there's a need to draw parallels as opposed to just a continuation.
We're seeing, honestly, the same things that we saw in the 60s from the education that we received. And like I said, we're the ones who are just continuing this fight, we're continuing this movement, but things for the most part haven't changed that much as people would like to think that things have changed. We're fighting the same systemic racism and oppression. We're fighting the same just general racism out in the streets and things like that. And so, like you said, I would agree with it's just like a continuation of the movement.
The people that MLK were fighting against, he would have been how old? 70 something,
Today, yes.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to note that these people didn't just, evaporate when he was assassinated. They had kids, they became police officers, they became judges, they became lawyers, they became doctors, they became beacons in our communities. And I think that that's an important note to draw and to add to the point that we continue on, that this is a continuation and not even a different circumstance.
Right. volunteering your time or your skills or resources to your local grassroots organizations that are doing behind the scenes work, like Black Leaders Movement and Change Now LNK, where we're trying to shift policy. KaDeja is the policy director of Black Leaders Movement. And so policy is our forte, so we work a lot together. But just volunteering your skills and resources, get connected with those grassroots organizations so that you can be a part of this actionable change.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, I think it's important when we think about policy and action-based things that you, first and foremost, when you bring, as an ally, when you bring yourself into these spaces, that you check your privilege and you know your place. Understand that you're in a Black space, looking for looking for solutions to Black problems, and white people have never had the answer to our problems, right? That's never been a secret. And Black folks have always had the answers in their community, and your job as an ally, I think, first and foremost, is to uplift Black folks, not to speak over them. So with that being said, bringing yourself into these spaces, understanding that it is your job as an ally to specifically, like right now, we're working with MOUs and trying to figure out, which is has to do with school resource officers and the policies that govern them, which really just is about, you know, getting them out of uniform and in schools. They shouldn't be there in the first place, right? So supporting that, going to your local board of education if you have kids in LPS, making sure that you are sending emails to the mayor and doing things like that, but also really holding the narrative accountable on the other side, right? When we look at what happened at the Capitol last week, and the reactions and the headlines and different things like that, it's really important that you draw those parallels, and that is an action that you can take, and really understanding the two different narratives that are had, because you can really correct your language around that, and it really, when you correct your language, you'll start to see the dichotomy of white folks and Black folks and how that's handled in America.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And then you mentioned community, and so I wanted to kind of go off of that. Another thing that I know I've been focusing a lot on recently, and you guys too, is uplifting of the Black community. So I was kind of talking about this earlier, but for February, Change Now is planning events that have to do with not only educating people on Black history, but really uplifting the Black community, Black culture, Black individuals, and just the uniqueness and beauty that Blackness is.
Right, and to add to that, it's really about the exclusivity of Blackness, right? Because I think so often Black folks, and including ourselves as Black leaders, are we're really pushed to educate white folks. And I've said this once and I'll say it again, I don't do this work for white folks, I do this work for Black people. And we too are doing the same thing over Black History Month. It's really focusing on centering the Black narrative and healing the Black community, because that is where our work really lies. We can change as much policy as we want, but the truth is that the actions are healing the Black community and hearing the Black community and listening to them and uplifting them. And it's specifically those that don't get listened to, you know, in the Black community, the dark-skinned girls, the girls, because we're more palatable for this community, right? And so the queer folks in our community, the disabled folks in our community, and I think that this is a time where they get to have their moment this day, since, you know, it's our job to bring attention to them on this day, but continuously and participating in our community through Black History Month as well.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of goals.
Yes, we do.
Things. Always got some great things in my mind that I'm looking forward to. I would say one of my biggest goals for 2021, though, is going along with what KaDeja just said about healing of our community and uplifting our community while we're doing these behind the scenes things and we're doing direct action in the streets. I want to make sure that we're all taking care of our community, especially, and community as a whole, but especially our BIPOC communities and the Black community, because that is who we do our work for at the end of the day, like you said.
Yes, and I think when we talk about tangible goals and locally here in our community, to add to that and taking care of our community is specifically locally is a police chief and having a very present role and making sure that our voices in the Black community is heard, because something I heard from the Black community a lot was, how are you it's great that you want to do these things in the future, what can you do to protect us now? Because Black people are dying and being harmed and brutalized by the police now. And so I think for both of us, both of our organizations as a whole, is really to have a very present role and voice in the picking of a police chief. And also for Black people specifically, trying to make sure that we're present in informing senators and things like that about our decisions. We both were on a call with the ACLU very recently of Nebraska to understand the bills that are being presented. When we talk about uplifting and being present in our community, I think our goals for Black Leaders Movement, and I know one of our other members, Dominique, talked to you about, a center for us. And I think that we really want to create a space that is for Black people by Black people, a space where, we're able to be Black, right? Where we're able to come in and, sit there and read a book and have conversations about Black things without the imposition of whiteness and how uncomfortable. Yes, and that goes right, and I think that that's a huge thing, is that when here in the Midwest, I think we're demonized so much for wanting these Black only spaces and wanting spaces where it's about us. And I think that that is something that America is not used to as a whole, but specifically the Midwest is Black people doing things for Black people by Black people, and I think that makes people uncomfortable. And I think that on this day specifically, you should examine why Black people doing Black things on their own makes you so uncomfortable. But I think that's a goal, is really to create a center or some sort of space, or even if it's a group that meets in different spaces, but just some sort of area or community group where we can really just, it doesn't have to be a conversation about race. Because
we can just be. Because at the end of the day, I think that Black people everything gets made about race, and you're always the token, and you're always the spokesperson for everything Black, and I have to educate you on this, and I have to educate you on that. But this space that we've been talking about, and we've been trying to think about how we can make that come into fruition, would be a place where Black people can just be Black people. And just do regular things come in and have a room where they can sew, or they can come in and, I had suggested to Dom about this whole thing about a queer corner for, for queer folks that want to come in, for queer Black folks. And then also, on the other hand, they can come in and, just listen to music and read, or do their homework, or have a cup of coffee without just having to not be loud in a coffee shop, because that's too Black for, whatever coffee shop that's around. And I think that that's just something that white folks take for granted, and that we just have never been granted. Exactly. And so that is definitely, I think, a big goal for a lot of the community activists here, is some sort of center and space that is curated for us, by us. Make sure just that you are centering Blackness, and you should ask yourself as an ally, because I know that there will be a lot of allies watching this, is you should always ask yourself 3 questions. Am I centering Blackness? Am I speaking over or taking away space from a Black person? And have I considered how this affects Black people? And I think when you go through your everyday actions and you ask yourself those 3 questions, you will find that you have not been considering Black people in the way that you have, or with what you think you have been. And that'll allow you the space for growth. And I think if you really want to honor Dr. King's legacy, it's up to you to do the work, and it's up to you to listen and hear Black people. And that is where you find the solutions for Black people. And that is where you will find Black people are thriving. And that is where you will find that Black people have always had the answers for their communities. I would also just go to say that we as a community and we as the people hold a lot more power than we think. And we as the Black community hold a lot more power than what we think, because we are primed and groomed almost to believe that we don't, and that we cannot change our circumstances, but we hold a lot of power. And that's why I really advocate, like KaDeja does, about getting involved at the local level and doing things at the local level, because even if we can't make big world changes today or even tomorrow or a month or a year from now, we can do a lot of things for our local community that we can change things.